I have to say, our boy Lee never stood a chance. Like, as soon as, even if it was an illusion, as soon as we have just someone being so flirtatious around him, that alone is enough to probably give up the item. But the fact that there was insults and just added to that injury, the boy never stood a chance. And I mean, as soon as we get that moment with them in like the hot springs and he's like listening in, the boy was down bad. There was no recovering from that and it left me rolling. But I was honestly surprised by how good all the plans were, all things considered. Like that castle invasion, honestly, I thought they had that just completely locked down until the whole like amazing sword slash came in and just completely turned the tides of the battle. But what a great episode of Iruma. I had some people wondering if I dropped it or something. I mean, I'm not dropping Iruma. I've been praising the show galore. It's just the weekends are such a busy schedule right now. It's really hard to determine how I'm organizing everything. I'm still in the midst of not sure. I think next week you might see Iruma on a Saturday. I'm still up in the air on that, but just know if you don't see it Saturday, you'll probably see it Sunday. The show's getting finished one way or another because I like talking about it, and seemingly there's a nice little cult following who likes following alongside me, so we will finish it. It's just, you know, this season, everything and its mother airs on Saturday, more or less, so it kind of makes it hard to fit everything in if you want to have a life at all. But let's talk about this one, because when we last left off, our boys were actually in a pretty good situation, ignoring beauty galore looking at our boy Lead, because of course we knew he was going to give it up one way or another. But when you consider the fact that Irma came back, he had the seed, he had the item, like it looked like, oh, they're on their way to jump to first place, and they literally had no points to begin with. But to see how quickly it all kind of like went down the drain, and to see like the idea, because I wasn't expecting it to be an illusion whatsoever, I was totally expecting it to be our girl, because I mean, that's just how it goes. I mean, we've seen her be manipulative. We've seen her use her talents to just sway the general personas around. And honestly, the fact that it was once again one of those demon time moments where, you know, for someone like Irma, seeing the parents and just completely freaking out, seeing someone like Lead get completely rejected, not even just like, oh, I love you the same as everyone, but just completely shitting on him as a person. I mean, that was some pretty heavy stuff, even though comparing what Iruma went with, he can definitely tell who had the harder life, right? I like the fact, though, that he didn't even realize what he saw. He's like, I don't know what he saw, but this works for me. And then they just kind of nope out of there. But I like the fact that, you know, for someone like Irma, what can they do in this moment? They literally, at this point, all they can do is get that item back. So what can they do? Well, they can go to where they're at and hopefully see if they actually took it or not, because they don't know for sure, because as far as he knows, he woke up and the item was gone. And then the fact that instead of just simply focusing on that, because, I mean, this season in general, something that I've been praising quite a bit is that they've definitely fleshed out the entire Misfit class, because rather than it just being the Iruma show, rather all the characters are really showing what they've learned over their training. And the fact that we're 14 episodes into the season and we're still learning more about what they went through, whether it's Lead and his concentration, so having music or something blasting in his ears, playing a Game Boy, and also reading a book and having someone talk to him, right? The idea of being able to deal with that level of disruption but still being able to concentrate. I mean, in the moment, it didn't look like his tutor was doing all that much, but seemingly it was the right tutoring, which, honestly, in general, all the tutors kind of looked like they weren't really doing the right things. I mean, at one point, it looked like characters were just being drowned in a waterfall, Lead was just playing video games, and honestly, Irma was just cleaning at most of the points, right? But the fact that it all kind of came together and they all had the right mentor for the right subject matter, right? For each of their talents, it all kind of worked out, and the idea of being able to use your authority to kind of convince and out-debate anyone and stuff like that, I really like what they're able to do with that and how it incorporates itself in the middle of these battles. And that's what I've been saying throughout all of these videos, is that anyone of the Misfit class I thought could end up winning. The unfortunate thing is we have someone who is basically able to take the form of your worst fears and is really screwing the pooch for everyone. So honestly, at this point, literally anyone could end up winning, and we can see how quickly someone who's amassed an amazing amount of points could easily have their castle overrun by savage animals. And the fact that you have just so many obstacles in your way, and the fact that unless you cash them in, because there is that whole banking system which was established earlier on, I mean, you're kind of in a very sticky predicament. So I mean, on one hand, you can look at a castle as a pretty good spot to hold down your points because, well, it is literally a castle, it's meant to be defended. Unfortunately, you also have a bunch of animals kind of charging through, so it's kind of a glass half full. Like, on one hand, I'm not really sure if the castle can withstand it, even with an amazing samurai. On the other hand, they are just animals in comparison to maybe a bunch of students who have mastered the art of, well, all of their training and stuff. Some of the unexpected comedy that I really like about an episode like this It's just simply like, the group, when the castle's being invaded, they're all being like, no, this is the spot we all came to when we had nowhere to go. We were ready to give up, and we decided this is our new home. And literally the person who made the castle is like, I literally did all this and I didn't invite you. What are you guys doing? It's just the little moments in an Iruma episode that can bring a grin to your face. But they actually had some fun with the presentation. Like the moment when he draws his sword and it goes into that black and white, almost old school samurai film, or even like the last shot of this episode is like a scroll where they're all fighting as if like they're telling this ancient martial arts story from back in the day. I just really like what they did with the presentation and how they just had so much fun. And for not seeing Lead for, God, a long time, all things considered, because really it's been focused more on Iruma's side for a bit, and then we just kind of got reintroduced to him. So to see him and just have so much of his just shenanigans, I mean, of course you knew him listening in and then honing in on the visual sensories was going to bite him in the butt. It wasn't going to work out that well. But it was nice to see him get his bloody nose and freak out because I love this character. I think he's a hoot to follow, and I'm interested to see where ultimately him and Iruma will go, because one would suspect they will get their item back and they will end up winning, but at the same time, with how the Harvest Festival has been, there's been a lot of uncertainties. Characters that looked like they had it on lock have dropped massively in points, and characters who literally no one believed in, such as Iruma, have come out with items that no one's ever seen before, or at the very least they've only heard about because they thought it was just a rumor. So honestly, at this point, I wouldn't be surprised if there's multiple ties. That looks like at any point, any one of the Misfit class could win. Who knows about our boy who can take the form of the deepest fears? There's a lot of uncertainty, and I think the biggest question will be, is if the Misfit class doesn't end up winning, are they actually going to lose their classroom, right? Because that was like the big thing about this, is that they need to prove themselves worthy of that classroom. But at the same time, you'd have to be able to argue, right? In a world where Iruma or none of the Misfit class ends up victorious in the Harvest Festival, wouldn't you be able to argue, like, looking at everything they did throughout this, that they are still worthy of that? But then again, maybe they're going to be really to the books by the rules sort of a thing, and that would be kind of heartbreaking given the fact that in season 2, when they were able to get that classroom, like after everything they did, they went against literally impossible odds and won. So I mean, maybe the only option is for someone like Iruma to win and prove the Misfit class deserves to keep that classroom. I don't know, but at the same time, this season in general has definitely subverted expectations, so I'm just kind of wondering if they do end up losing and none of the Misfit class succeeds in being first place, is the teacher really going to take it away from them, or is he going to say, you guys still proved yourself good enough to have it? I don't know. Maybe that would rile up too many feathers because he would be playing favorites, but then again, people already thinks he's playing favorites, so I don't know where they're going. But either way, I had a really fun time watching this episode. It was definitely a very charming, hilarious, and a little saucy, spicy style episode, but it was a great Iruma episode nonetheless, and seems like we'll have another big battle next week, and we'll see where, because we're on day 3 now. We're almost approaching the end of the Harvest Festival, and it'll be interesting to see where they take it. But let me know what you thought of the episode down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed and subscribe if you're new around here. If you want to go the extra mile, I have a bunch of live reactions going on over on Patreon, and while you're there, you can also get yourself a video shout out like a few are about to get here. So we got Calvin Atkinson, Christian Beltran, and Coconut Gang. So I appreciate the support, everyone. Please take care and have a good one.